Alright, so we're going to make our first router table practice plate is what we're calling this thing. To do it, you're going to start an IPT part file. And then on that part file, let's go ahead and do a sketch on that top plane. Put that top plane there. And I'm just going to start this with a rectangle around my origin. I'm going to go ahead and dimension my rectangle at 2 by 2. We are going to be changing that. I have to redimension it here in just a moment, but that's okay. I just want to get it kind of this size I want it to be. So 2 by 2. I'm not going to worry about centering it up yet on the origin because I'm going to be cutting some corners and things out of this thing here in just a moment to add some details to it. So it's going to get rid of those. Okay, for this, again, I want it to be 2 by 2. And that's kind of the maximum space I want it to take up so we can fit several people on this first little practice plate. But I want you to add some interest to it. I don't want you to finish the sketch here and just make a rectangle, simple plate. I want everybody to be unique. So everybody add something into yours. I have a couple examples of different ones I've done here. So let's take a look at it. I have this one we will be adding holes to in just a moment. This one, did a half circle there, sliced off a corner, and then a quarter circle here, cut out of it. And just add a little bit of interest. I want you to leave enough space out here in the middle of it to where you have space to add these couple of holes. So don't do your cuts that come away in here so you don't have any material left out here in the middle, but leave some material out there in the middle so you can add some holes in it. So there is one. Here's another example of what you can do. This one I sliced up on the top and did that. And then here is and this one again leaves enough space to put those holes out here. Here's the third one that I've done. Now, this one really isn't a good option. It has some very tight cuts in here, some very sharp points it goes down to, and it just is not going to work well. Our router bit has a radius to it. We have an 1/8 inch bit and a 1/4 inch bit, but with the radiuses on those, these tight corners just are not going to work. So something like this is not going to work. You want to go ahead and use a fillet. I wouldn't do anything less than an 1/8 inch radius fillet. Less than an 1/8 inch radius fillet are going to be too small, so this will cut here, and definitely this will slot with the square corners, and these square corners are too sharp. Outside corners, however, can be square, it's just those inside corners cannot, because the router bit has a radius to it if it doesn't do that. So those are not good options. Alright, let's pause there for a second. So, what I want you to go ahead and do is go ahead and create your object, whatever that object may be. Again, just drawing circles on here is not a bad thing, because circles have a radius to them and they'll be pretty easy, so that's fine. Again, doing a slot off the corner of it is fine. Oh, sure, I'll do it on opposite corners. There, and I'll trim this thing up. Now, this is the reason I mentioned before, the dimensions really don't matter in setting it up because you're going to be getting rid of some of those dimensions anyway. Now, I do want you to make sure you have this thing fully constrained. So you've been constraining enough, you should be able to get this thing fully constrained with that. So it might take some jumping in there and seeing what needs to be done. I mean, this one here, oh no, that side moves up and down. So I'll make those collinear to each other, and that'll work to solve that one. Oh wait, now this hole moves up and down. Let's send it into that circle. Well, constrain it with your origin. Oh, it's not that one. Constrain it not with the origin, I guess, with this line and that corner. So now that doesn't move. I could go ahead and set the radius of this, so on and so forth. You guys have done this enough, you know what you're doing. But again, remember on these radiuses, nothing less than an 1/8 of an inch, quarter, or, and honestly, for this first one, don't do anything less than a 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 inch or more on the different radiuses of things you're going to do there. This would be fine here. Again, what I need to do there is get this one fully constrained. Once it's fully constrained, and this is not yet, but I'm going to go ahead and finish this to save some time. Once it's fully constrained, go ahead and go out and extrude this. And when you extrude this, you have to extrude it the thickness of your material. When I did this in class the other day, I measured the material and it was 0.12 inches. So I would extrude this at 0.12 and go okay. And extruding it one way from this is just a fine option. You don't really need to worry about going both ways. You don't need to worry about that center origin. Once you have this one constrained, alright, there's that object looking beautiful. We're going to go ahead and start a sketch on this top surface. With that sketch on the top surface, go ahead and add in a point. And then we dimension to that point. We're going to use that point to put the hole in. And again, this is just the way I've always put holes in. So this, for me, is kind of grandfathered in to put holes in. okay, but I definitely want you to use the whole command. So get used to using the whole command if you haven't. And go ahead and finish that sketch. Make a hole on that point. This first hole, I'm going to make it a 0.5 inch diameter hole. And go OK. I'm going to go ahead and add in another point. So I'm going to start a sketch. Put my point over there. Eventually that point. And again, I really don't care where you put these points. Let's say I put 0.4 out of that corner. And oops, out of that corner without void constraining. And go ahead and put a point. This hole, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, down to 0.3. And OK. So there is my beautiful looking little plate that I've got. And what we're going to do now is do our next step for actually exporting this as the file type we need to make the router type. So, and this is always one I kind of muddled through. As you noticed the other day in class, I really muddled through. So we're going to go over here to CAM, the CAM tab on the top, click on CAM. The first step to do once you click on CAM is you've got to go to this setup. So we're going to click on setup. And on setup, our goal here is what we're trying to do is get this X, Y, and Z coordinate stuck onto this top corner right here, and then have our Z pointing out of the top surface, have our X pointing in this direction, and our Y pointing in this direction. It's a little bit difficult to do, but let's make this happen. All right. When it first comes up, it should be here where all these black dots are showing up on the corners. That is the stock point. Now there I just turned it off, but if I click on it again, it depresses that button, stock button, and now I'm ready to click my stock point. My stock point is going to be this corner, there. But now, my problem is my X, my Y, and my Z's are not pointing in the correct direction. So to do that, we're going to open up our model orientation right here. And we're going to select the Z axis. All right, that first option, Z axis, and Z axis / plane and X axis. So we're going to select that. And I'm going to click on the shaft of the Z, and then click on a part of the object that shows the line we want, which is that line right there. And that rotates my Z straight up. And that got it done in one step exactly what I wanted done. Sometimes some things are wrong. So for example, the Z might be pointing straight down. If the Z is pointing straight down, then that's where you come over here and you hit this button that says flip Z axis. That flips the Z upside down. That's not what I wanted, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my Z so my Z goes straight up. And there's one more here that I can do is flip the X axis, which I flip that direction. But again, that's not what I wanted, so I didn't do that. Now I do notice one thing that happened there. For some reason, my stock point went down one. I don't know why. I want my stock point to be up there. There we go. So I went back and I clicked on the stock point button and put that back up. Alright. Okay. So now that we have this thing in there correct, the Z is pointing up, the X is pointing down this side, the Y is pointing up or in this axis here. That's got to take care of. Now remember, it's just the flip Z, flip X. I can pick my stock point, and then I can just come up here to the button and pick the Z axis or the X axis or whatever. So it's kind of confusing. The first time when I did it the other day, gosh, I had to muddle back through this. That time I think it went pretty smooth. Okay, once that's done, you've got to click this OK button. It won't save it. So down here, we click OK, and that is now saved. Now what we need to do is we need to add in our different parts out here on this. Now, the other day when I showed you in class, we did the 2D pocket. We did the 2D pocket, we came out here, we did your 2 holes, and did that. Then we did the 2D contour, we're going around the outside of the object. And after I did that, I remembered that last year we just used 2D contour for everything. And when I say everything, we used it for the small holes in the center, and both of these would be considered small holes. If you do a larger hole, the 2D pocket is a good idea, but, you know, and actually it's not. I don't know. I would just go with 2D contour all the way, I think. So we're going to give this a shot with 2D contour. Now the thing with this is, you click on the bottom surface of this where that little white appears, and that selects that hole perfectly. Come here, click on this bottom surface, and it selects that hole. And it gives that little blue line around the outside and the up arrow. that means that's selected correctly. Once you have that, you got to come over here to this this tab. You're going to go to your 2D contour here at the top. You see that. You're going to click on this first one. This is your tool selection. You're going to click on Tool. You're going to then go to the Tool option here. You're on the tool. And you come to this one. Well, we're going to search our tool by type. So you're going to click on by type. And at the top, you're going to type in, we want to use a small tool. 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch are 2 standard tools. Our hole we did small enough, we're actually going to use an 1/8 inch hole. So we're going to go 1/8. And it lists all these 1/8 inch cutters. We're going to go to the 1/8 flat in the mill. So we're going to click there. Now we got to scroll over here to this side. We're really looking at the RPM of these and the feed rate. And it does give you a nice little hint here, which I forgot about the other day. 10,062 inches a minute. That's for plastic. So it's a soft material, plastic. That's a good one. We're going to select it. Go select down here. And there is our cutter. That is it for this step. So you're going to go OK. And then we're going to come up with another contour. So we're going to go to the contour again. We're going to pick our outside contour. And I picked up the automatic outside edge. Once again, we're going to go back to the Tool button. Our tool should already be the same tool, but we're going to look at it and see to make sure. So I'm going to click on Tool. And it actually is not listed there. So we're going to go ahead and select the inch flat pan. Select. We're going to go OK once again. And now you see you have 2 contours here. Now the reason we did this in 2 different steps, you could have done all it, selected all of them in one contour. But just because you select the order here, sometimes the mill changes that order around on you. And if you think about this when it's cutting out, when it's cutting this out, if it cuts all the way around the outside of this object first, then it goes in there and cuts your hole, this thing's going to be loose and wobbling around in there, and that's what's going to break our bits. Last year we broke several of them before we started figuring this out. By doing this in 2 different contours, it will definitely do this one first and then do this one. It won't decide which one it wants to do first for you on the latitude side. There is, however, one thing I did forget, which is on the 2D contour. So we're going to go back here to this contour 2 once again. And the thing I did forget is I don't want this thing just to come loose and wiggle around in there. So on this tab, where there is the 2 little square blocks, I'm going to click on it. This is Geometry tab. And I want to add tabs. So I'm going to click on tabs. And tabs, there's 2 different ways to use tabs. One is by distance. Right now it's set to a 1 inch distance. If we set this down to a 0.2 inch distance, you put tabs everywhere. 1 inch distance is fine for an object like this, but notice it didn't add a tab on this side. Sometimes it would add a tab on this side. The other day on the other one I did, it added a tab to the bottom of this curve. And you really don't want a tab being at the bottom of this curve. When you're trying to think about cleaning it up afterward, it's hard to clean it up. The outside one, you can just go through there with the belt disc grinder or sander and sand those off. So a better option for this one may be to go to Add Points. And here now we can just add tabs in. So I might add a tab in there. And just on this side, maybe I'd add 2. Add another tab right there. 1 more right there. And 1 more right there. So now there's at least a tab on each side. This one or that one's kind of in the left 2. And that's not bad for the tab. The default size for the tabs are here. 8 by 32 feet, which is okay, and then we go OK. That's got all that taken care of. All we can do now is we can go ahead and simulate this. So here, and I kind of had a confusion with this the other day too, if I select it here, it's just going to simulate that first contour. If I select it here, it's going to simulate that contour too. I want to do both, so I'm going to click on the setup one on the top, and then I'm going to simulate. And now it's going to do both of those. Like the simulation there. Goes over, does that hole, does that portion of it all the way on the outside. Then here's where it comes up for the tab. And that's great. There is that part about doing that portion of it. There's going to be a whole other video about this